The origins of Cadbury date back to 1824 when John Cadbury set up a grocery shop in Bull Street in the centre of Birmingham. So it was mainly a grocery store and he was selling tea and coffee, but he had a sideline of cocoa beans which he hand grinded himself. And that was really successful, so by 1831 he started manufacturing on a commercial scale in a small factory in Crooked Lane in Birmingham. He then outgrew that factory and moved to a new one in Bridge Street in Birmingham, which was much bigger. And then by 1861, John retired and handed over the business to his two sons, Richard and George. And they were the real forefathers of the Cadbury business as we know it today. So the Cadbury family were Quakers and firmly believed in social reform and helping people. John was the forefront of a lead campaign to stop young boys being used as chimney sweeps, and both himself, Richard and George Cadbury were all involved in the adult school movement in Birmingham, so enabling men and boys to become more literate and therefore to get on in the world. So by the late 1870s, the Cadbury brothers had outgrown their factory at Bridge Street, and also Birmingham at that time was very much slums. It was full of smoke. It was a very unpleasant place to actually work. Both Richard and George wanted to provide a better facility, a better area for their workers to live in, and they used to walk out from Birmingham every Saturday afternoon in different directions to find a potential new site for the factory. One day they ended up here at Bourneville, which in those days was pretty much just farmland. But what was here was the canal was here and the railway was here, so from a logistical point of view it was a fantastic site for them. So they bought 14.5 acres of land and set about building the Bourneville factory. The factory opened in 1879. George also created the Bourneville Village, which was a new way of providing housing both for the workers but also for the local community, so it wasn't just tied to Cadbury workers, but the houses were built specifically that they all had a front garden. Their back gardens all contained fruit trees and vegetable plots so that people could grow their own fruit and vegetables. They were all light and airy, and his idea was to provide a better environment for people to live in and to work in. And there's a famous quote from George which is, "No man ought to be condemned to live in a place where a rose will not grow." When they moved to Bourneville, they then set up an initial cricket club and a football club in 1883. And then over the next few decades, they purchased additional land. They set up the girls' grounds to encourage girls to do recreational gymnastics, etc. And then in 1896, they also created the men's grounds, which was cricket and football pitches. And Bourneville Athletic Club itself dates back to 1896. The first mention of rugby at Bourneville dates back to 1909, which is when the first ever rugby ball was seen on site, and the rugby section was set up as a subdivision of the Bourneville Athletic Club.
Well, here we are at Roe Heath Edwardian Pavilion, the ancestral home of Bourneville Rugby Club, who played here for over 100 years. I first joined the Bourneville Rugby Club as a 16-year-old, as it was my local club, and one of the stipulations of the Cadbury family was that no alcohol was allowed on Roe Heath, so we had to entertain the opposition with fancy cakes and cups of tea. Well, the club has changed, but more or less to meet the demands of rugby union, which has changed enormously with the law changes. In the days when I first joined, your main instinct was survival, because if you went on the floor you got kicked to death. Whereas now, with more stringent refereeing, there is a more open flow to the game. My overriding emotion when playing for Bourneville was one of pride that we'd got 15 individuals together to work in unity in one direction.
At that time they had an excellent side. It was amateur rugby we were playing. The professional era hadn't come about, and they were probably not the best club in the area, but one of the top clubs in the area. That they had a period where they got a number of excellent players who just happened to come together, and they were having a great successful time. One of the most memorable things is starting up the juniors, how much fun we've had with the juniors and how significant they've grown to become to be, you know, especially in rugby. At the time the clubs were struggling, and a number of works clubs, which we were, folded, and a lot of the other clubs were managing only one or two sides. and we maintained 3 sides through all of that period, and the RFU recognised that there was a shortage of players, and so encouraged clubs to have junior sections. Children came from the different schools, mainly from Shenley, and we started the junior section. One great event we hosted was the RBS International Roadshow, where 2 internationals came along, Paul Sacchi and Andrew Sheridan. They delivered rugby to the youngsters. Paul Sacchi did the running and agility, obviously being a winger, and Andrew Sheridan did the scrummaging, rucking and mauling, obviously being a forward. The children had one-to-one time with each of them doing these elements. The girls, the Birmingham City Youth Development Officer, Richard Webb, wanted to start a girls' tag league, which he did, a Warwickshire tag league, which, due to going to meetings, I had spoken to him about. And so we started a girls' team, which was extremely successful over the years. And at one stage, they won the Fair Players Trophy, which was brilliant. You know, we got photographs of them receiving their awards, you know. Quite a special moment, really.
I'm Darren Clegg, current chairman of Bourneville Rugby Club and an active member for the last 20 years. In 2018, Bourneville Rugby Club had somewhat of a makeover, certainly regarding our facilities and home ground. We said goodbye to our previous homes of Roeheath Pavilion and the Bournebrook pitch at Birmingham University, and we opened the gates to Avery Fields. Avery Fields is a £4 million complex which not only provides the rugby club with a permanent place to call home, but engages, supports and serves our local communities and businesses. Let's hear a little more from some of our patrons and club members.
Joined in November 2016, initially as a player, and then my role kind of became player coach. The following season, and then stepping up to be the head coach in the 2018-19 season. Moving into this facility, it had been something that Bourneville had been looking for, they've been fairly nomadic and known as being a nomad club. So moving from being down at University of Birmingham, we were probably, Tuesday, Thursday, you'd be lucky to get, your 12 or 15 out to training regularly. And that was when we were playing level 6 and still being fairly successful at that level, to moving up here, getting numbers close to 40, 50 at training in the senior men's program, consistently putting out two senior men's or 3 senior men's sides. Having something to call your own is massively important. When you're nomadic and you don't have a fixed area or a fixed club room, it's hard to get people to buy into a club kind of ethos and club atmosphere, because there's no history, there's no feeling and sense of ownership. And having a facility like this enables us to try and drive that and try and build it. And I think for a club that's never had anything, and that's not only the seniors, that's the M&Js, to now having something, we're 3-4 years into being here, we've definitely put down roots. Not only the seniors, but the juniors will buy into that club kind of ethos and using the facility and treating it as their own and making themselves feel comfortable here, which has got to be the most important thing. It's definitely the people and the stories that make up what we are as a club and what we will continue to be moving forward.
Bourneville Community Department, powered by Community Group, don't just work with the local community in and around Bourneville and Harborne, but we also work with Birmingham as a whole. That includes working with children as young as 5, as well as our elderly in and around the area. A lot of our projects with young people include schools delivery, mentoring, and our camp programme, of which includes the HAF projects. The HAF projects are a fantastic opportunity for children to be provided free hot meals during the holidays that they wouldn't usually have access to during the school holiday period. We also deliver a fantastic walking rugby project delivered by our tremendous coaches. We have 10 to 15 regular players over the age of 55, and we also offer and have brought back to Birmingham wheelchair rugby, which allows people with disabilities the opportunity to have a go at a new exciting sport that perhaps they wouldn't usually have the access to do.
HAF camps are really important to Bourneville, just because you can really see the impact it has on the children. They really enjoy all the different sports and things like that. And for the parents as well, you can see that they just love dropping off their kids here and seeing their children having a good time. Probably the inclusivity of it. It's just we have so many people to use the grounds and the main room from all different age groups, from small little kids to older people coming in with maybe Age UK or something like that. And also we work a lot with MenCap as well, so there's just so many different people that come in, whether it's for a corporate event or a private event or just to come and enjoy the surroundings.
My name's Ellie and I'm the women's captain here at BRFC. We have great facilities here where we can cater to women of all abilities, from those who have never picked up a rugby ball before to those going on to play county representative rugby. Not only that, but we have women and girls of all ages, from the under-18s girls moving up to play adult rugby, and people coming back after having children or coming back to rugby after a long break.
Hi, my name's Frag. I was the women's captain last season and chairperson this season. The women's section started in a park with 5 players back in 2016, and last season we had 52 players. We went from strength to strength. We won 10 matches and had the league award for the biggest fortress. I am not only a member of the women's section, but I have 2 children and they train with the under-7s and the under-9s, and I decided I wanted to give something back, and so I coach the under-7s as well. I coach my daughter.
Years. I started as a player, as a first team player for about 9 or 10 years, and then slowly dropped down through the ranks, and am now old enough to play for the Hippos, the vets team. But more importantly, now I'm also a dad, and so I've got 2 children who are 6 and 8, who are part of the minis and juniors set up here. And I think the facilities that we've got here at Avery Fields make it such a fantastic place for children to come on a Sunday morning. The coaching is fantastic, I can say that, unbiased. You come down here on a Sunday morning, there are 350 odd children really enjoying themselves. What's great is most of the age groups up until the under-11s have got girls taking part as well, and then we've also got a girls section in the minis and juniors as well, which is really taking off and really starting to thrive as well. It's a fantastic place for me to bring my children on a Sunday morning. I think one of the beauties of the club now is, now that everybody's under one roof, the minis and juniors section, the senior section as well, and also the women's, is that there's a real clear pathway for children to go from under 5s all the way up until senior club, maybe even walking rugby one day. My hope for my children is that they have got a rugby club, they've got a base, they've got a club that they can call home, and you know, I couldn't speak highly enough of the place at the moment.
As we have just heard, Bourneville Rugby Club has cemented itself as a key stakeholder for well-being and business within Birmingham and the surrounding areas. The purpose-built facilities provide a first-class playing experience for all teams, while supporting the club's meteoric rise through the English Rugby League structure. We're particularly proud of our walking rugby programme, which actively engages over 55s in physical activity and social opportunities. Participants include former players and club members, and also people from the surrounding area. We also hold joint sessions in partnership with local and national charities. We're thrilled to be able to welcome back wheelchair rugby into the city of Birmingham after a 20-year hiatus. Our wheelchair rugby programme helps diversify our offer of support to local people. Drawing inspiration from our heritage, we ensure we stay community focused, the same way the Cadbury family did back in the 19th century.